Oh, you do have that light on there. I see it now.
All right. Velma Hagar. Here we go.
Okay.
Now, Velma, do I have permission to take this interview?
Yes, of course.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
All right. We're at the Historic Society of Palm Desert in the firehouse. And today is January the 27th, we think.
We think.
Something around there. And this is Leslie Roth with Velma Hagar. And what is your full name, what you were born with?
Velma Hagar.
Oh, yeah?
And I have resumed my maiden name even though I was married. But
Right.
I had a shoe store and I called it Hagar Shoes for Men. And so I felt, to keep that name in the middle. And I always did. It was always Velma Hagar Otterman, Velma Hagar Solis. Yeah. Solis was my first name. The first Velma Hagar Solis was my first husband. And he and I are the ones that moved to Palm Desert together.
I see. Velma, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you spell it?
Velma.
All right. And were you named after somebody?
I was named after my Aunt Velma. Yes, my dad's sister.
Uh-huh.
And she was a real pretty woman. And my mother just always admired her, so she named me Velma.
I see.
I never liked it, but as the years have gone by, I grew into it. And I kind of like it because nobody else has it, or very few people have it.
And where were you born?
I was born in San Francisco, California. So I'm just a full-on Californian, been here my whole life.
When did you come to the desert?
My mom and dad met and married in Palm Springs. They were the first group of people to go to Palm Springs High as it stands today. It was there then. And, my grandpa was the chef at the Chi-Chi Club. Back in the day, the Chi-Chi Club was the only place to go. And all the celebrities went there. And grandpa was Italian from Italy. And he was the most amazing cook. And he cooked for every president that was alive in his time. And all of the movie stars, back in the day, Palm Springs was movie stars, and it was those people that worked for the movie stars, and the Agua Caliente Indians. That was basically who lived in Palm Springs when I first came there. This is back in the 40s. I was born in 1942.
Yeah.
And so every winter, my dad was a professional boxer, and he was also the caddy for Bob Hope at the only golf course in the desert, and it was the O'Donnell Golf Course in Palm Springs. And he was his personal caddy. So every winter, we would come to the desert. And believe it or not, we lived on the Indian reservation, even though we weren't Indian. But back then, if you had a certain income, you could go out there. And my grandparents, I don't even know what they ever did for a living, but they're the ones that lived on the Indian reservation. And we would just move in there with them. We didn't stay inside anyway. We did everything outside. And we had a bath outside. We had 2 outhouses. It was Section 14. What you hear of Section 14 today, this girl used to live there. And so it was really interesting. I mean, it didn't have an inside toilet, didn't have inside running water. We would go down and from a spigot down about a block away and carry water out back and fill water in a tub. And my grandmother and mother would wash in the clothes, with the old lye soap. And we took a bath in that same tub after, it was really primitive. So we started out there. But interestingly, we had to leave every summer, of course, because there was no way to cool. And back then, you talk about haboos, like we had some haboos here everybody was going, what's with all these haboos? When I was a girl, I remember them all the time because there was nothing around to hold down the sand. And that wind would blow. And we lived in this little shack, and it didn't even have floor, it had dirt. And my grandmother had put down a piece of linoleum in one part of the house, but the house had no foundation. One time the wind just blew it like this, and it stood like this, stood up, and then my brother and his dad just pushed it back up. Oh. It was a shack.
Oh, okay.
But I was in it when it happened, just standing there, and it was like the thing goes like this, and maybe just standing there. But there was something about the desert that I loved. Yeah. So I'm this little girl, right? And we're leaving. And it's one of the first things I ever remember, really, just consciously recall. I was only about 4 or 5 years old. and we're packing up, leaving the desert because summer's here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm crying. My mother goes, "Why are you crying?" "I'm crying because I don't want to leave." She goes, "We have to leave. It's too hot here." So the next scene, we're driving down Palm Canyon in this old black Ford, and our stuff is piled on top like the Beverly Hillbillies, and my nose is pressed against the window, and we're driving down Palm Canyon, and there was nothing between. Well, in those days, it was a hospital. The hospital, which was the El Mirador, it's the hospital now again, but it was the El Mirador in between. And we're driving all that way in this desert on down Palm Canyon, and I have my nose against the window, and I'm still crying, and I say out loud, "Well, when I grow up, I'm going to live here all the time." I mean, I did not want to leave. So fast forward ahead, the years go by, and we do this for a while, back and forth. And we'd go to Northern California in the summer. So when I got married, I went to high school in the here in Fontana. I went to Fontana High. And so I get married, and I kind of just give up on my dream, I was always going to live in Palm Springs when I grew up. But here I marry this guy, and he's a deputy sheriff for Riverside County. And so as it turns out, they transfer him to the Indio Station out of Colton. We lived in Colton. So here we come. I get my dream, and I'm 22 at this point, and he gets transferred to Indio. And so I want to go to Palm Springs, and Palm Desert wasn't even a drop in the a bucket then. It was nothing. And he doesn't want to commute from Palm Springs to Indio. So we stopped here in Palm Desert, and we found this little track area. The wash stopped everything. Everything was cut off at the wash. And it was, if you went down Portola, and it was called, what was the name of that street then? It's Avenue 42. It was Avenue 42 then. Now it's Fred Waring. And so there was a little tract of homes there, and it was called Shadow Village. And there were only 1,400 people in Palm Desert. That's what the little sign said, Palm Desert, California, 1,400 and some people. And so this was kind of in between for me to be near Palm Springs and him to drive to Indio. And so that's how we settled in Palm Desert. And that has been 60 years ago. It was 60 years ago. And I'm so grateful today I'm here and not in Palm Springs. And I still love Palm Springs. I love that mountain in your face when you drive into the city, and the whole topography there is just beautiful. And my roots are there. I mean, the Hagars, which was my dad's family, and the Bios, which was my mother's family. So they both that was where they lived. And so when I go over there, I have it's real poignant for me to go to Palm Springs, even today, just to go out and eat, or, I just feel, my mom and dad walked these streets as teenagers, and my grandparents. And so, but Palm Desert is in my blood. So as you and I were talking, I got sand in my shoes when I was 4 years old, and I could not ever get it out. When we got transferred here, I remember my sister saying to me, "Well, you're finally getting your wish. You're getting to go to the desert." And I have loved it. I live at Ironwood Country Club here in Palm Desert, and I watched that being built. I watched Palm Desert grow from nothing. It grew from nothing. I mean, it was just a little drop in, just a little stop in the road. There was no market, there was no gas station. Alcobar Liquor was here. That liquor store, I don't think it's called Alcobar, the corner of San Pablo and Frontage Road, right there.
That old one.
Yeah, that was Alcobar Liquor was here. And there was a place called Henny Penny Chicken. And there was one little tiny drugstore. And it was, I can't even think of the guy's name now, and I used to know him so well. Everybody knew everybody here. And Bob had joined the JCs, and in that capacity, we did a lot. We started the golf parade. Today, my husband and I started that. Isn't that amazing? And look at it today. And also El Paseo. I became one of the founders of El Paseo. We had no idea it was going to do what it did. We didn't start it to do what it did. We started it as a few little merchants, and we were on the east end of El Paseo between San Luis Rey and Portola, and there was nothing on the other end. It was all dirt, We had a few little shops, and it grew from that. So I've really watched.
What's in that location now? In that where your shop was?
You mean San Luis Rey? Oh, it was
The one that was on
Prickly
El
Pear
Paseo.
Square. It was called Prickly Pear Square, and and the city hall was in there then when they became a city, because they weren't a city when I got here.
Mm-hmm.
But that little square now is that consignment center, that big consignment center. It's right there. So if you would,
it's on the south side of the road.
It's on the south side, yes. And so was my shop, the first shop, and it was a clothing store. It was called Cactus Flower Fashions in Prickly Pear Square. I thought that was just so clever. And so we had a few little businesses there. We had Lily Pulitzer and just a few little shops that opened up. And then Bank of America wasn't there yet across the street, but that is San Luis Rey and Portola. And then they started building a few little shops across the street. But really, Prickly Pear Square was kind of, it kind of just started the whole ball rolling with some little shops there. And Drazanovich's was there. And,
what was Drazanovich?
Drazanovich's was a little gift shop. It was a real fancy gift shop. And Rob Lottie had a little, he had like a little gardening place. It had little indoor plants in our plant shop. And then Rob Claiborne had a men's clothing store, and then Lily Pulitzer. And there was just a few little shops there, and we started it. And from that, it just grew. And so then I moved across the street. Well, I had that in there for 8 years. And I remember telling my girlfriend, they started building across the street, the Bank of America, where Bank of America is. And they started building those little stores. And I said to my girlfriend, if I had the time or the money, I'd open a shoe store in this town. And I would get that little suite right there. And I pointed it out, and it was right next to where Bank of America is today, just east of it. Little tiny, 660 square feet.
Perfect.
And I talked her into doing it, and she hated retail. And I had said to her, if you don't like it, I'll buy it from you. But I didn't really have any money. I was just talking, you know. And I had the little dress shop across the street. So a couple of years go by, and she hated it. She comes to me, she said, you said you'd buy it. So to make a long story short, I scratched up the money, and I bought this little 660 square foot shop. She had it set up, you know, with the little furnishings and stuff. It was so little, it didn't hardly hold any shoes. And then I decided I'd sell the dress shop and go into shoes, and I ended up staying in that little shop for 13 years. And
what was the name of that shop?
That was Cactus Flower Shoes.
Oh, okay.
I still kept the name Cactus Flower.
It's there now, right?
Well, now it's called Sophia's, but it's still a shoe store, yeah.
I remember that name, Cactus Flower.
We were the most popular shop on El Paseo. We were so popular. Not the most expensive, and certainly not the one that made the most money, but because our prices were a little bit lower than what we didn't plan on El Paseo being so, you know, so elegant and so expensive.
Well, in those days, okay, so when you opened that, it was not an elegant clientele, is that, or was it?
No, it wasn't. I mean, but that's pretty much what was here were golfers. You know,
right.
Women, you know, middle-aged golfing women were pretty much our customer, you know, and so that's what I went for. But I ended up doing a beautiful, it was called, it was like Healthy Foot Fashion was my logo. Oh. It was real fashionable.
That was before its time.
And very glitzy. I loved glitz. I loved, you know, and so
bling.
We stuck with it. I stuck with the same thing all those years, and I became a real guru on how to fit your foot. When I went in, I didn't know anything, but I learned, I learned all about your feet and, you know, all this, how to fit you. And even the podiatrist would send people to me because I knew how to fit your foot. Because, you know, only 0.5% of foot problems are caused from hereditary factors. The rest is all from shoes. And when I learned that shoes were doing that to women's feet, 1 in every 4 women has severe foot problems. Shoes are doing it. Places where they don't wear shoes, it's unheard of. Foot problems are practically unheard of. So I really got into it and found my little niche, you know. And
what were some of the lines you had? Do you remember?
I carried Onyx. I loved Onyx. Was my favorite. And Desario. I did all American made. I did all American made shoes, but I used Italian leather, which was so good. And I just really, the women loved our stuff. Magnesium Brothers, which was out of LA or out of City of Industry, they just took me under their wing and taught me everything about shoes, and I loved them, and I kept them until they went out of business. I mean, I actually outlasted them, and Desario, I loved Desario, and we had what else? I had some lower end like gosh, it won't even come to me right now. I retired 12 years ago, by the way.
Okay.
I kept that shop for 13 years, and then I moved down the street as the buildings began to grow and build. Then I moved up where Tommy Bahamas is now. I was catty corner across the street, next to the little French bistro there. I moved down there, and I had like 1,200 square feet, double the size of the other one. And then I took the suite next door, and I ended up with 2,500 square feet. So I had a men's Hagar shoes for men and Cactus Flower shoes for women.
Was that a lot of work for you?
I loved it,
Did
Leslie. You? I loved it.
And how often did you go to market? Like you would go?
Well, they all came to me, to be honest. They all came down here and set up. I specialized in the people that I bought from. I was loyal to them, and they were loyal to me. They weren't allowed to sell to anybody down the street, because then other shoe stores began to pop up, and this, the street began to grow. But I still went to market. I would go at least once a month, because I'd go down there to buy handbags and jewelry, costume jewelry, and just to check out other things. But I stuck with my lines. I stayed with them, and they were my bread and butter. Onyx became, that was my best-selling shoe, was the Onyx shoe, and I still love Onyx.
Onyx is a little bit dressy. How do you describe Onyx? Why is it
glitzy?
Okay.
They are to me, they were the healthy foot fashion I talked about.
I see.
Because they had the polyurethane sole, they had a good insole, they used all leather inside, they used all Italian leather, which is the finest leather in the world. They tan the best leather. Italy does. But we provide it. America has more leather because we eat more cows, but we send the leather to Italy to be tanned.
Right.
And then Desario and Onyx both, and Magnesium all used Italian leather to make their shoes.
I got a question about that. Okay, so when did handbags were big then, but did they really? There was a certain time when there was like it boomed.
Yeah,
handbags.
You're right. It did, and it was quite a while ago, because I remember when I still had the little shop before I moved west. West on El Paseo. The shop next door to me opened up a handbag shop, and that was probably like in the 80s. I would say that was around 1980 thereabouts, that all of a sudden handbags become a real important feature. We all carried a handbag, but all of a sudden they became part of your jewelry almost.
Exactly,
they were
an
like
accessory.
Jewelry, like your accessories. And so then I picked handbags up too, and because when I had the little shop, I only had a couple of them. But later, handbags were a big item in the shoe store.
Plus, they didn't need a size. They didn't need that size. That's the issue with shoes. And I've heard on shoes, please tell me if this is true, when you buy shoes, you have to buy quite a lot of them. You have to buy so many sizes, right?
You do. You absolutely do. If you don't have a run, and like if you don't have, in my day when I started, 7.5 was the most popular size, but it continued to get bigger. I stayed there 40 years, by the way, on El Paseo for 40 years. So in that 40-year span, by the time I was done, I would say 8, 8.5, 9 were the number one key sizes. 7, 7.5 now became a small size.
Jeez.
And so it really changed. So when you're buying, if you don't buy a good run and you sell you only got one of each, they come in, they buy 1/8, the next guy that comes in, we're out of 8s, So shoes is a little bit harder. As much as I loved it, clothing, if you only had one size 10 left, you could put it in with a bunch of other size 10s of anything, and they can, but when you've only got one size shoe left of a particular style, what are you going to do? You put it out there, everybody that comes in, I only have that in one size, so it is difficult in that way, but I really had a real niche for it. I always said it must be because I was Italian. I had that thing for shoes. How the shoe cobblers are always Italian.
Yeah.
And the shoe leathers, they tan it and they make such good shoes. And I thought, well, it must be my Italian blood. And then on top of it, I wore a sample size, which was so beneficial because I could go and try the shoes on. You know, you can look at a shoe and, oh, that looks great, but what does it really feel like on your foot?
I know.
And so because I was sampled, I got to try on every shoe, and I could tell what it was going to be like. I had such an advantage over the other merchants, I thought, you know, the other shoe merchants. So it was like, and then you saw how limber my legs are. I could get up and down all day long, and I could sit on the floor like, you know, in Indians fashion and put shoes on their feet. I had everything about the shoe business, I fit into it. You know, I fit into it. I really loved it, and I learned it well, and it treated me so good. I mean, I was a mother, a single mom. I ended up divorcing, and he left me with no child support, and I ended up doing so well by myself in that little shop. He wasn't with me when I opened it. I opened it on my own, and I had refinanced my house to do it, and I just really stepped out. And you know, it ended up being, it was just one of the loves of my life. And I really made it. I remember one day I was driving down El Paseo, and I had a new Mercedes, and I was headed up to Ironwood Country Club, where I had bought this little condo, nothing fancy, but I was finally at Ironwood Country Club, and I wasn't struggling. My taxes were all paid, and I was in that car, and I said, oh my God, I made it. I made it. I mean, because, you know, in those days, the street was so empty, and I used to sit in the shop. I remember going 10 days without a sale one time. You know, it was such a struggle. But I stayed with it, and I watched Palm Desert grow, and I helped it to grow. You know, I was part of everything in those days. I was really active, you know, and I helped to campaign for us to become a city. I did it the first time, and we didn't make it, but we did it the second time, and we made it.
What did you do when you were campaigning? What would you do?
Phone calls and walking around, knocking on doors, and trying to get people to vote for it, you know, and phone calling, and it was such a small area that we could do that, you know.
Who was the first mayor of Palm Desert? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I know Dick Kite was.
Okay.
Dick Kite was the guy I backed, and you know, and when I was in business, we didn't have floating mayors either, like we do now. We had one mayor, and we had Jean Benson was one of the early mayors, and she was a woman. And then we had God, what were their names? Oh, Dick Kelly. Dick Kelly, Kathleen Kelly's father. Yeah. And then we had Brush had a shop too, and of course it was you know who was here was Wilson. Scott Wilson's dad, and Roy Wilson, you know, the Highway 74 is named after him, the scenic, and he and his wife, Pat, worked next door to me in Drezanovich's, the little gift shop, and Roy Wilson was such a good man, and he became supervisor, and later he became supervisor, but our little city council was so small and so conservative, and they did such a good job in the beginning. I was so active working with them, and honestly, I would have loved to have been mayor of Palm Desert, and I believe I could have done it, but I had a family to take care of. I didn't have the time, you know, between working and my family. But today I'm still very active, real active. I just campaigned with Predato. They just won, Joe Predato, and Truby is one of my buddies, you know, that's on Giovanna that just won. She won, you know, we actually campaigned for her, and we had meet and greets, and so I'm still real active. I love Palm Desert.
Have you ever thought about running now, or you think?
No, I'm too old. I would love to, and I think I could do a good job, but you know, as you get older, you know, and I'm very active right now. I really, for my age, I'm doing almost more than I can handle, you know. Every day I am the chaplain for our club.
All right, so tell me about that.
We have 2,500 members, East Valley Republican Patriots.
Okay.
And we are the biggest club in the United States. And even when President Trump came to the desert, he called our club, and our ladies went onto the tarmac and picked his men up and took them.
Oh,
I
yeah?
mean, we get all the senators here. We get, the legislatures, the whole Congress. We promote people, and our guys like Jeff Gonzalez won. Yes, here in the desert, we're so happy with him, and we're really active, really, really active. We had Tom Homan last month at our luncheon. Oh, he's a dynamite speaker. We get all kinds of good speakers come out. So, and we do.
How are you? Did you train to be a chaplain, or you?
I am self-taught.
Good for you.
I'm an ordained minister, so I can marry and I can bury you and marry you and so I mean, no, I never went to school. I know the Bible from the front and the back. I know it by heart mostly. I know as much. I always said I know as much about the Bible as I do about shoes. I mean, it was like those were my two biggies. And cooking. I'm good at cooking. Those are my three wheelhouses in life. Is the Bible, shoes, and cooking. And so I learned.
You did all of those.
I really, and when I did them, I went into them with everything I was worth. So I teach a lot of Bible studies. I do public speaking for a lot of groups. I published 2 books. I'm ready to publish another one right now. I've got another one coming out. I'm excited about the third one, because my second one came out on my 80th birthday. Shut up. My other one I did at 73. I said, I'm like Grandma Moses, for God's sakes. I didn't even know I was a writer, and I ended up. I always loved to write, and I write a blog every day. And and as I told you, I have my little ticker talkers. All
right, so let me hear. Okay, first of all, the blog.
The blog.
Is there a name for it or something? Or?
It's my book is called Hidden Treasures in Secret Places. That was my first book. So basically, the blog speaks to that, and it takes one scripture every day out of the Bible, and it's always something encouraging, and it's a life application of the Bible. It's not in any way churchy, not churchy at all, but it is a scripture. And so every day I take a one-liner, and sometimes it isn't even. Like I had a one-liner the other day, and it said, a lot of food, a lot of problems. No food, one problem. And then I run with that.
Interesting.
So I write a blog on that.
I see.
That sometimes
you use it as your topic, and then it makes you think on down the road.
I get one line that I hear that I love. I say, that's a good line, and then I run with it. And I can get it out of Proverbs. I could get it. You could speak it to me today, and I go, that's a good one. And I put it right down, because every day for 20 years, I've been writing a blog, and I never miss, never. And I started out writing it and sending it to my children and my grandchildren. And pretty soon my friends are saying, well, send it to me. And then pretty soon I got it so long that I start putting it on Facebook. And so then I start putting it on TikTok. But then on TikTok...
Yeah, let's hear about the TikTok.
I verbalize it. I verbalize TikTok. I don't.
Okay.
So if I'm going to write it down here, I go on and I call myself Bubby. Now, I am an Italian, but I call myself Bubby, which is the Jewish word for grandma. And we love the Jews. Well, I'm a Christian, but we love the Jews because they gave us everything we have. So we really try to compliment them whenever we can. So all my grandkids, I have 10 of them, 3 great-grandchildren, they all call me Bubby. So on TikTok, I'm Bubby. So I'm everybody's Bubby. I'm everybody's grandma,
That's precious.
And I go in and I say things like, everything you put out there is going to come back on you. Now, see, remember that this is scriptural, okay? It's scriptural, but it's not churchy. I say, you think you get by with things? You don't. Every single thing you put out is going to come back on you. Your Bubby knows stuff like this. She's old. Precious. She's been around, and she knows it. So don't do it, okay? So this is your Bubby talking, and it's real simple like that. And I went viral. The first time I went out there, I went viral. And I had one video got 2.2 million views. I mean, it's like they loved me, So that's how I got started on TikTok. And I do one. I only do a TikTok maybe 2 a week.
Yeah.
I do a blog every day, and I do my YouTube. My YouTube, I have some good subscribers there too, but certainly not 77,000 like I have on TikTok. But I've done good with YouTube. And the YouTube.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Hidden Treasures and Secret
Oh,
Places.
okay.
Everything is named that. That's what I just go by. Because basically that's what I'm about in life, is that life is filled with treasures, but you have to see them.
Absolutely.
Many times they're hidden, And my new book is going to be called Hidden Treasures in Plain Sight.
I love that.
My second one was Hidden Treasures in Dark Places. So I have Hidden Treasures in Secret Places, Hidden Treasures in Dark Places, and now I have Hidden Treasures in
I love
Plain
it. That
Sight.
is so perfect.
I love it. I just love it. So anyway, that's what I'm doing now. I'm getting that last one pulled together. And, I said, my granddaughter said, Bubby, promise me that you're not going to die and not do a third book. I went, all right, Anna, I'll do the third book. So I'm just, today I said.
Do you have photographs in it, the book, or is it mostly written?
I have some, the first book I did, because I was such a novice, we had lots of pictures of the desert. Because remember, I'm a desert gal. I got sand in my shoes. I promote the desert. And the Hidden Treasures in Secret Places, we had a beautiful book cover out in the desert with a treasure chest sitting on a sand dune and pearls coming out of it.
Perfect.
It was beautiful. So the pearls have become the logo because it's like pearls of wisdom.
Right.
And that's what everybody calls it, Velma's Pearls of Wisdom.
Oh.
And I really thought that was going to be the name of the book. But then I said, no, I'd rather just go with this Hidden Treasures in Secret Places, which is a scripture in the Bible. It says Hidden Treasures in Dark Secret Places. That's why I did the two, one in secret, one in dark. But this one's going to be Hidden Treasures in Plain Sight.
I love that.
I do too. I can't wait to do it. So anyway, it's fun. I'm delighted that I become an author, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Oh, I bet you are.
They're 5-star on Amazon. Both of them, they're doing really well. And so this will be, I'll have a series of them now. I'll have 3. And I'm doing it. Yeah, it's exciting.
The trilogy, yeah.
But the desert's been very, very good to me. I love it, love it. I tell you that.
What do you think of the mountains, for example?
Ironwood Country Club. I'm right here against the mountain up there, and I say to God, never let me take this for granted.
Yeah.
I am surrounded by the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. I live right. When you first come in the gate, I'm not too far in, but I look south at the mountains, and they're right there. It's just a panoramic view of the mountains, and then I overlook a lot of houses that go lower and higher, and there's a lot of undulation up at Ironwood. It's beautiful ground, and when they started building it, and I lived in that same place that Bob and I bought in Palm Desert. For 30 years, I stayed there. And he left me there with the kids, and I stayed and stayed and stayed. And we had remember that big flood?
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Oh my gosh. It was crazy. I was in that house, and I looked out the window, and I went, what is going on? There was water running. And Portola, we actually went out on Portola and took a canoe. We could float the canoe down Portola. It was coming down from the mountain because the dam had broke up there, and it flooded everything in Palm Desert. And I had my first little shop. We had to take the carpet out of that shop in little squares like this because it had mud just knocked down the door and came in. And I mean, the mud was just everywhere. It was crazy. People's houses, the mud came in up to you this high. It was mud.
Was that a quick rainfall, or was that over a period of time?
No, it happened. Boom.
Oh,
I mean, you look out the window and it's there. But what happened was there was a dam up above Ironwood.
Oh.
And that was when they started building Ironwood here.
Oh.
And everything just came washing down into the wash.
Yeah.
Hit the wash, and there was people's sofas and refrigerators running down the wash. I mean, the houses, it was crazy. Our house was spared because we backed Portola, and it had a block wall, and we only had sea poles. But people who had a gate, it knocked down their gates and went in, and it did. But ours just had sea poles, and so we just dug a trench around it and ran it out to the gutter, and our house was spared. But so many houses, it was just a nightmare. And I think that was in 1974.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following year, it
Mm-hmm.
did it again. The very same day, the following year. And I think it was in September. And I think it was September 9th, 1974 and 1975 that we had those horrible floods. So then they built that waterway we have over there by Target now, over by the,
Okay.
you know how they have that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Peter's Path, kind of?
yeah, right over there. And so now you never see Palm Desert flood. If there's a flood, get in Palm Desert, because we're the only place that still doesn't flood. The rest of them get it, but we don't, because 2 years in a row we got it so bad that they put that in, and it really stopped the flooding here.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, it was a night. People lost so much stuff.
Did they were able to clean that up, or did they have to tear structures down also?
Oh, a lot of people lost. We lost structures. We lost, yeah. And Ironwood had to start all over.
Oh, it did?
Because that's where it came from. It was right behind Ironwood. And just, and you know, back in the day, everything stopped at the wash.
Yeah.
Like, where I lived, we were on Portola, off Portola. Actually, our house backed Portola. And Lincoln School, which is still there,
Mm-hmm.
that was the school for the kids, and my kids all went there. And then the water would wash down to the wash, and every single spring, that thing was a raging river. That wash was a raging river. Kids would get killed in it every year. My kids were forbidden to go near that wash.
Would they just go down there and mess around?
Well, they loved it. Are
Yeah.
you kidding? It was like, you know, and they were forbidden to go to that wash because people died in that every year. And so the first one they opened up, because if we wanted to go, if it was raining, if we wanted to go on the other side of the town, we had to go to Indio or to Palm Springs.
Oh my
We
God.
couldn't get over from here. Palm Desert was, it was only one way out of here, and that was Highway 111. You know.
Yeah.
And so then they opened. I think Bob Hope was the first one that opened. And we started getting access to the other side, but we were stuck here. You know, we were just here in our little village. And one of the things that I remember about Palm Desert that was so precious was Andy the Donkey Man.
I know. I was going to ask you about that.
And I'm
Please
sure
tell me
there's
about it.
signs. I think there's something about him in here. He
He
was
just showed up
always
one
here
day?
when I came.
Okay.
And I came here, like I said, in 1964.
Mm-hmm.
And he was here.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to park on the corner of right there where they have the Target area, you know, where they have that, and they have the camels out there, like they're drinking
Oh,
all
yeah.
that water.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was Andy
Oh, in
the
that
Donkey
area.
Man's place.
Yeah.
And he was there, and every summer he would take his donkeys with his little cart. He had a little covered wagon thing. I think he lived in that thing, you know. He just and they used to pull it up to Idlewild or to Herky Creek. He would take his donkeys up there every year, but he had donkey rides there. Now, you know, there were so few people here, but the kids would it was 50 cents to ride a donkey.
Really?
And he had them, you know, up on a little spiral thing, and they'd go around in a circle, and, you know. And
Did they have saddles, or they just?
Yeah, I think he had a saddle. I mean, he might have just had a serape type thing. But he used to go to the bathroom across the street. There was a restaurant or a gas station that finally opened up over there.
He would use that
And
as a
he
restroom.
would use that bathroom, I guess. I don't know where he bathed. I mean,
Was he
I have no idea.
Spanish? Or was
But he was part of the,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, when you think of
The
Palm
lore.
Desert, you think of Andy the Donkey Man. I don't even know when he died, you know, but he just kind of disappeared one time, you know, he's gone. And I always think it's so interesting when I see the camels there,
Yeah.
you know, drinking. They're not real, of course, but they're drinking and I go, that was like Andy's
That is
donkeys,
so
and they were
cool.
right there in the same spot.
You can barely see the camels in a way.
I know
from
they've got too much greenery around them,
Yeah.
but he was such a part of
Yeah.
our desert, you know.
part of the culture.
Yeah, he really was. And then I wanted to tell you a little bit about the first parade, our golf cart
The
parade.
golf cart parade.
Because today it's such a big thing. We never
Yeah.
dreamed what we were doing when we started that. There was just a little group of us,
Yeah.
and they would call the JCs. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that did not stand for Junior Chamber of Commerce,
Oh.
even though everybody thought it did.
Yeah. What did it stand
I don't
for?
know what it stood for. But my husband was the president.
Uh-huh.
And so we decided that we were going to have this little parade, and we called it Christmas in July.
You said that.
And we had all of our kids. We got golf carts, and we had all of our kids and all the JCs, and we were all young families. You had to be under 35 to be in the JCs.
Mm-hmm.
And,
oh, really?
And we went from Shadow Mountain, and we went past the Washington School. I think we must have started somewhere in that area. We didn't go very far. And we ended up at Shadow Mountain, and we'd have a picnic, and we did that several years in a row. And that began to grow.
Yeah.
And in those days, the frontage roads were not one way. They went both ways.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
And we were so mad when they made those one way. That was so unpopular in the desert, in the small little desert. But that particular city council decided they were going to be one way, and so we'd go up one side of those and down the other in that little parade, But there was just so many sweet things.
Did the parade go by your shop? Did it go by your shop?
No.
Okay.
No. Because we didn't go on El Paseo. We were on Portola and the frontage road. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And then Portola to Shadow Mountain.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't go by in fact, I didn't have a shop then.
I see.
I didn't have the shop. I didn't open the shop until 1974, the year of that. We had that flood. That was my first year that it got flooded out. So I was just a housewife in those days. Yeah, my first year was 1974 in the shop, and it got flooded out. But I thought that was an interesting thing, that we started that crazy little thing with no idea. It has never not done it all these years since.
Yeah.
It's so sweet. Yeah. And then, we would have the kids would dress up and be in the parade. And
yeah.
I mean, I don't even remember all that we did. And then we had a group called the Junior Women. And that was Palm Desert also. All women under 35. Very few of us. But we were the JC's wives. And we had, just recently, we had a gathering of the people that were left. Because, honestly, most of my constituents are, I hate to say it, they're all died. I'm 82, so I am up there. And the average lifespan is only 81.4 for women. So, we have lost a lot of them. But we had a great group of people in Palm Desert. It was a great group. We were very, connected.
And you were supportive of each other.
So small, that 1,400 people, yeah. And Henny Penny Chicken was our only place to go eat. I mean,
well, tell me when you went to Henny Penny, what would you get
Henny Penny Chicken had the best food. He used to deep fry. When I think about it now, I'd love to have it. He used to deep fry his potatoes in the same batter that he deep fried his chicken. And those potatoes, and now a lot of people do it. That Tower Market, they're kind of doing it a little bit. Have you tried their?
I've heard that they have very good food in there.
Their chicken and potatoes are really good.
Okay.
But a lot like Henny Penny. And he used to take those which nobody did in those days.
Were they like tater tots or something?
They were about the size of a wide. What do they call those? They have a name, steak fries.
Okay.
Yeah, they're wide like this. They're not cut real thin. And he would dip them in batter, and he would deep fry them in the same batter, the same grease. And that chicken and those. And we used to have our outing in those days. There was nothing to do. If we wanted to go out for a drink, no place here, nothing here. We had to go to Palm Springs or Indio, but we didn't like Indio. We would go to Palm Springs.
What was the first place where you could actually get a drink?
It was called the Blue Nun.
Okay.
And it was on El Paseo, believe it or not. They opened up this little place called the Blue Nun, and that was the first bar that we had. But there was the Red Barn. But the Red Barn was kind of, it wasn't like you didn't go out for fine dining or cocktails.
Right.
It was kind of a beer joint. I never went to the Red Barn. But it's been there forever. It really has. I think that building has been there since I've been here, and it was called the Red Barn too. But this Blue Nun was here on El Paseo. We didn't have a market. I used to go. Where Honey Baked Ham is? There was a Safeway. That's where that consignment center is now. So I used to go do my grocery shopping there later. But before that, I had to go to Indio or
Right.
Palm Springs to shop.
But where did you do your grocery shopping?
I did it at Safeway, and then
Oh,
later
the Safeway.
Jensen's was I think it was Smith's Market.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jensen's was Smith's. That was the first one in Palm Desert, Smith's, right there where Jensen's is now.
Did they have higher end kind of things? Like
No,
do
they
now?
did. That was a good one. But Jensen's itself
Mm-hmm.
was a little teeny mini market
Oh.
over there by near. Remember I told you that Elkabar was there.
Mm-hmm.
So Jensen's was a mini market, real expensive. But see, Palm Desert wasn't high end. You know, we weren't.
Right.
There was hardly anybody here. They started up at Ironwood Country Club. You know, when we had.
Do you feel that the high end started at Ironwood?
It really did in Palm
Okay.
Desert. Because it had Big Crosby up there and
Right.
Phil Harris,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a couple of those guys anyway that started, and they were actually where Ironwood is now, but Ironwood wasn't there. It was just private
Mm-hmm.
homes.
Oh, I see.
And then they built Ironwood around those guys. And
Right.
Big Crosby's place is still there, and so is Phil Harris. They tore Phil Harris's down, but they left the fence up with the big H on it, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so then they built Ironwood around them, and they became part of it.
Oh.
Anyway, that came, and they were all of it was part of that. It wasn't Ironwood.
Yeah.
And they chose not to go behind the gates. They missed it. They missed the property value. What's that called there? It's I can't even think of what it is now. But they're still there too. But they never got so valuable like Ironwood did. I mean,
Yeah.
they should have come behind the gate with us. They didn't want to be an association. They didn't want, you know. And so, and they're okay. Silver Spur is Silver Spur.
Right.
So that was all one property group there.
Right.
Silver Spur but Ironwood hardly had anything in there. Movie stars.
Well, how did you know that was going to turn out better than they understood it to be?
I didn't know, but what
Okay.
I knew was that I loved that topography
Right.
up there. I just wanted to be up there by those mountains and the look, the beauty of it, you know. And then as they started building, I realized it was out of my league. You know, I thought, I'll never make it. You know, it's too expensive. And then as time went by, you know, my little shop began to prosper, and
That is so fantastic.
I ended up being able. I bought a real small, one of the small ones. I always call it the low end of Ironwood. It's actually the ghetto of Ironwood, but there's no ghetto in there. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I got the little condo there, and then
Yeah.
later I upgraded and got on the golf course and got
Good.
a bigger unit, you know.
Did you when you were working on El Paseo in your stores? Did you work 7 days a week?
No, I did in the beginning when I was struggling really hard with the kids. I got up, dressed up, and showed up every day, you know. But as time went on, no, I always took Sunday and Tuesday off. Strange, I didn't have them in a row. But then if I wanted a day off and take off, I ended up having good help, and you know.
Good.
I ended up really prosperous when I sold my shop for a nice amount of money, and I retired at 70. I planned I'm going to stay till 70, and I did, and I've loved being retired, and and the
Did it
desert.
take you a while to get used to being retired?
No, not a bit. I took right to it like a duck to water, and it's weird because nobody thought I could do it. They all said, "Oh, you're not going to be able to do it," and I was real social at the shoe store, and you know, just such a part of everything. And no, I didn't have a bit of problem. I just took right to it. I still say, I love being retired. I love it. I'm busy all the time, and my time is more my own. The shoe store was wonderful, but it was a lot of worry. You know, that, like I said, a lot of food, a lot of trouble. No food, one problem. You know, I had a lot of problems with the shoe store, you know, because you have all the employees and and
The
keeping,
drama.
and keeping up with fashion and
Oh, I know
you know,
it.
and changing with it, and the fickle customers, and just
Right.
I didn't have a shoplifting issue or anything like that. I was real blessed. I never dealt with that.
Did you have, when you were in the store, did you have those measuring
Yeah.
stools and stuff like that?
The Brannick device, yeah.
What
I
is it
did.
called?
The Brannick, the
Brannick,
Brannick device.
okay.
Yeah, and I was real big on measuring feet too.
Yeah.
Because when people come in and they say, I always wear a 7.5 medium, I go, then you're not being fit right every time, because you cannot always wear the same size shoe unless you're wearing, I mean, if
The same kind of shoe.
the same kind of shoe, you probably can buy the same. But every shoe line cuts different. And when they're lasting them, they pull them a little tighter or a little looser. You have to try your shoe on to know if it fits, and not to tell me. And men were just, when I opened the men's shoe store, I'm telling you, I was like, and I mean, I love men, mind you. I favor men. But they were horrible. They were horrible.
In what way?
They're,
They don't want to get fitted or something?
No, I wear a 10.5 wide. And I used to say, whether it fits you or not. And then I used to say, I love to fit your foot, not your head. That was my favorite line. Let me fit your foot, not your head. Because they were so adamant. They could put a shoe on and it could fit them perfect, but they'd say, what size is it? I'd say, well, it's a 10. I wear a 10.5. I'd go, but it fits you. But I wear a 10.5. Well, I mean, they were so rigid. I got so annoyed with them. I only kept the men's shoe store for 10 years. I finally said, you know what? And they would always want a discount. And you would think it would be...
I'm surprised to hear this.
Whiners. I mean, pardon me, you guys, and men watching. But they were awful.
I thought the men would be easier.
No, they weren't. They were just awful. And the women, I just had the women, they ate out of my hand. I mean, they trusted me,
That's a trust thing.
I could
right.
never get the men to trust me. I would say, let me fit your foot. I know how to do this. But they were so rigid. And they'd bring them back. I mean, they'd bring them back. And listen, I mean, this is how they were. This is an unusual one, but I had one guy come in and he brings the shoe in and he's returning it. And I go, gosh, I haven't had this shoe in the shop for 8 years. He goes, I know, but I have shoes in my closet that's lasted longer than that. 8 years, and he wants to return that shoe. Wants to return it because it was wearing out. So, this is how they were. Women, they kind of know. You don't do that. We know stuff.
You had to be very diplomatic.
Oh, they were the only ones that ever wrote me bad checks, too. Never, my women never wrote me bad checks. Never. And the men took advantage of me, So I finally just said, you know what, you guys are out of here. And I opened up. I kept the shop, but I made my women's size twice as big.
Right.
And
well, that's where my money
was there.
What about jewelry? Did you have jewelry in there?
Costume jewelry, all costume, but finer costume jewelry.
Right.
Yeah. I did a real good volume with jewelry. Yeah, and hats. I had hats and purses and scarves and just all these.
You go up there and looking around
at the Mart.
Oh,
I used to go. Oh, now you mean?
The Mart? You went to the Mart
to pick those things up? Yeah. And we used to go. We'd walk around with the jobbers, outside the Mart,
Right.
And we used to love that and sit on the curb and eat Have you ever had a Hollywood or an LA dog?
Good.
They talk about New York and Chicago having hot dogs. No, LA, man.
Right.
You know what they are?
What are they?
Well, they put them on those little roaster things, and always Mexicans, and they make the pico de gallo.
Yeah.
And the pico de gallo has got the cut up avocado and the chilies and the tomatoes and onions and everything all together.
Right.
And then they put all of that on this hot dog with cheese and I mean, we would sit on the curb always and eat one of those.
That is so much fun.
Yeah, when we went to the Mart, that was always, I had a lot of memories of shopping and going to the Mart. And my desert treated me really good, Leslie.
Yeah.
Really good. And
when you went to the Mart, did you come back the same day or did you stay over sometimes?
Sometimes we stayed, but more times we came back. We'd go early and get out of there early, and because the traffic was always a doozy. But we just knew the ropes. We knew where we were going, and we parked, and we had our parking place. It was always in the same place, and we'd schlep the stuff to the car, because we would take it and come home. And my girls were always like, it was like
you
Christmas.
would bring the merchandise with you? Or if you're with a jobber,
Not always, but the jobbers, you bring it with you. Yeah. But if you go in and order, that's different. But we would always come home with big bags of stuff. And my girls, it was like Christmas, Oh, God, all the new merchandise.
How did you decorate your store?
Well, the shop was feminine. I like a feminine touch. Even though I favor men, I had my men's side. When Hagar, she's for men, and I actually dedicated it to my dad and the boxing, and so I did like a boxing theme over there,
Oh,
You know,
that's
I had a bicycle,
cute.
one of the, stationary bike there, and
Did you?
yeah, and it was cute. It was a great. I had my dad's original trunks that he wore, and I had him in a shadow box on
Oh,
the
how
wall.
cute. Well, where did
And
he
his
go? Where did he
gloves.
box in the desert? Did he go over to
Palm Springs.
That same boxing place?
I'm not sure where he
They
went.
have the original
Yeah,
boxing place.
I'm not sure, but I know he boxed in Palm Springs.
Oh,
He
how
also
cute.
boxed in San Francisco
Oh.
and Brawley. He had his
Oh,
he had
really?
his I restored his book. His he had a
His professional book?
yeah, I had
Yeah.
it restored
Yeah.
because everything was so old, and
Yeah.
all the family got some of it. Look, it was
Right.
not the original, And so he was Salinas. He boxed in Salinas. He
Oh
helped
wait, what was his boxing name?
Bobby Hagar,
Okay.
and he holds the record for being knocked down the most times in a professional fight and getting up again. And no one will ever beat him because now they stopped the fight. So he holds that record to this day.
He will always hold that record.
And interestingly, by the way, and I haven't said this, but my brother's Sammy Hagar.
That's what I was
The
going to
rock
ask
star,
you also.
yeah.
Mhm.
He's so.
How did you get such an illustrious family? What happened? What the DNA in that family was real interesting.
There's a lot that goes on. And there's a lot of family politics too.
Oh,
That was
his famous.
Really famous. I mean, he's got a lot of famous ones, but I Can't Drive 55 is probably his.
Now is he younger?
5 years younger.
And
He's 77 and he's out there rocking. Leslie, you should see him. He's amazing. He amazes me.
I think he played Stagecoach here or something like that.
Yeah, he's coming. He's going to be in Stagecoach this year. He's going
Oh,
to be
yeah?
not Stagecoach, but the other one.
Coachella?
Yeah, he's going to be Coachella this year. Yeah, he'll be there. Yeah, he's really made it big. That guy has. I'm telling you. And all of us, we all started so bad. I mean, out on the Indian reservation, living like paupers.
But do you find that I bet you you have a sense of very deep self-pride for starting like that and ending up.
Leslie, you'll never know that. And him too, he just got his star in the Walk of Fame last October.
Oh.
We all went, and he had tears. He said, to think where we came from.
Wow.
And where he said, this is the biggest thrill of my life to be at the Walk of Fame.
That is so cool.
There's only 2,700 of those. I mean, there aren't that many people that have gotten them over the years, and he got one, and he just was in tears. He said, I can't tell you, just looking back, how in the world we ever did it. We slept in chicken coops. We lived in tents. We were so poor, poor, and all of us made it. All four of us. We all had 4 kids, and we all, somehow, we had a real. But I do give God the glory. But my mother was amazing. That little Italian.
Oh, is that right?
It only takes one good parent. Yeah.
In what way? Give me. How was she amazing?
Well, my
She
dad
was
a chronic alcoholic.
Yeah.
He was psychotic and mean. Well, you know how that thing where they say they get that concussion. Remember that movie Concussion? That's what happened to my dad. When we said he got knocked down the most time, they said that he was never the same.
Oh.
And so he turned really, really mean. And we would have to run from him and hide from him. And so we slept in all kinds of places, until we finally got a car. And then Mother made it into a place where we could sleep. Mother was awesome. And she did a good job with us. But she didn't have any education, so she couldn't make a good living. And, but
where was she from?
She was born in Los Angeles. And
really?
Remember, they lived in Palm Springs, too. Her parents...
Oh, that's right.
Her parents were Italian from Italy. And they were hard workers, and they always did well. Grandpa was a chef for all those, as I told you, he cooked for all those celebrities. But everybody was afraid of my dad, and so they wouldn't help us, because my dad would beat him up.
If something happened, you mean they would?
Because we would have to leave and hide from him. He was mean. He was a mean, psychotic drunk that would beat my mother up. So we would have to leave, and we had nowhere to go. By the way, I'm speaking at the that Olive Crest luncheon they're having at Bighorn in February, and this is the story I'll be telling.
Okay.
And the reason they want me to tell this story is because in those days they didn't have things available like Olive Crest. Today children have a place to go. A mother has a place that she can go.
Options.
there's all kinds of them, but with us there was
I
nothing.
know.
So I grew up with PTSD. I had it so
Sure.
bad, caused from the trauma that we went through. But today I'm just, I had to go through it and work it out, and I did. I got it worked out, but that's when I turned to God.
Yeah.
That's why you asked, do I have any training? My training was out of desperation. I turned to God and He healed me, and I walk so free of all of it today. But I'm 82. I had that till I was around 50. I raised my kids with PTSD by myself.
Well, you didn't have time to take care of yourself.
Couldn't
You
do
were too busy
anything.
taking
Yeah,
care of
I
them.
had to do it, but I was able, and I got it done.
Yeah.
And but thank God for places like Olive Crest today that you can go. You don't have to do what my mother did. I can remember, Leslie, we dug a tunnel. You know how kids will do. We dug this tunnel and we put boards over the top with dirt, and then you went in on this end like this. I
That's
can
where you would
remember
hide?
my mother and all four of us kids sleeping in that tunnel to
Really?
hide from him. We had nowhere to go. And he'd be walking on the top looking for us. And to me, this is where the PTSD came in. He was a boogeyman, and he was after us.
Absolutely.
He was after us all the time, and then my little heart just went like, I lived in fear. When you talk about my childhood, I just tell you the word was fear. It was fear. And, we'd sleep under these orange trees that would come down real low, and Mother would make a little pallet under there, and then he would be walking by, and we would hold him not to cough, and
You don't want him to hear anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were so
Wow.
afraid of him.
It almost sounds like the Holocaust.
It was awful.
Yeah.
And my mother was so good, and she tried to leave him, but she didn't have any education.
in
She
those
couldn't take
days.
care of us. There was nowhere to go. This is why, this is going to be my word to all of us.
That is amazing.
Please give to this community, this organization that takes these people in. Children should not have to grow up with PTSD because they're afraid of their dad. It was awful. But we got through it. And we got through it. And
you know what? I hear something that you're saying too. You had stuff happen, but you're resilient. You bounce back.
Yeah, very.
How do you bounce back?
That's
You
where
just have
God
that.
came in. That's where God came in for me. And Mother too. Mother didn't know the Bible at all.
Yeah.
But she had a real childlike faith. And when these things would happen, she would take us. There was a little Catholic church, and there was nobody in there, but she'd put this little kerchief on and go in the church. It was open. She'd say to us, you wait here. And then she'd come out and she'd say, it's going to be okay. God's going to take care of us. We're going to be okay. And that was, good. That was our hope. That was it. And she believed that He would, and He did. We used to eat we used to go get crawdads, out of the crawdad holes, and we would pick mustard greens. Oh my gosh, mustard greens. Today I see them growing and I go, look at, nobody's picking them, nobody's eating. Oh my God, they were so good. And we knew which ones to pick that were ready, that were tender. And we would go to the potato fields that had been picked, and my sister and I would load up our dresses with them, and Mother would sit on the side of the road and build a fire and cook, and she always had a pan with her. Mother always had a pan to cook in,
Precious.
She had 4 kids.
What was her name, by the way?
Gladys. Gladys Bio. Yeah. Oh. And actually, when you asked me my whole name, my middle name is Gladys, Velma Gladys Hagar. And I said to her one day, why would you name a little baby, a cute little baby girl, Velma Gladys? And she goes, because I want you to be named after me.
What a sweet
She was so precious. And she came with me to Ironwood too. Because
did she live with you for a while?
No, didn't live with me. Sammy bought her a place up there next to me. And she went literally from the outhouse to the penthouse. I used to tell her that. Literally, that was her thing. She went from all that, and in the end, Sammy treated her like a queen.
Really?
Oh, he bought her anything she wanted. And, between me too, because by then I was doing well, and we took such good care of Mother. So she lived with me at Ironwood until she died. And she died overnight real suddenly and never sick or anything.
Yeah.
She was quite a lady. So I always tell people, it only takes one parent, one good parent. You got to work harder, but you can do it. I watched my mama do it. She was a good, nice little Italian mama. I loved her with all my heart.
You were a single parent yourself.
I
right?
was. Bob left when I was 35, and left me with 3 kids and no child support. And I ended
Yeah.
up, and with PTSD, and I had it bad, Leslie, I had it bad. But I just had to do it. I did what
Yeah.
I had to do, and my kids turned out so good. I mean, I don't even know how it happened, but they're wonderful. They're all in the ministry too,
Oh.
even though they're also very successful. But
Sure. Well, there's different layers of that. The ministry, how does the ministry fit into work and, social, and how do you make
you
that
just
all blend
walk.
together?
You walk the walk.
Yeah.
And every place I go, I'm doing ministry. Everywhere I go, yesterday I counseled. I'm going to marry a couple, and then
Mhm.
I counseled them. I had a counseling session with them yesterday, and it's just my life is just surrounded with. We have
Yeah.
2,500 members at Republican Women, and I'm the one that prays, and and I'm there for them. And if they die, I have to do the funeral.
Sure.
And if they get married, I do a wedding. But most of these are older women, so I don't really do many weddings. I'm excited to do this wedding. I do more funerals,
Yeah.
which I don't enjoy as much. But
Yeah.
Anyway, but I've really
Are you is that non-denominational?
non-denominational.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're Christians.
Right.
We are Christians, but anything done for God is to be respected, and but I'm
Absolutely.
a solid Christian all the way, and I give Him all the glory. I found a scripture that said, "Call unto me, and I will deliver you from all your fears." And remember, I was inundated with fear. That's what was wrong with me. I had fear that my dad was going to kill my mother, and maybe me too while he was at it. I was afraid for all of us, but mostly for my mother, who was my rock. And that fear followed me. I got married. I used to just have fear. I was afraid of everything. There's only 2 fears that men are born with: the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. And yet there are over 2,000 fears known to mankind. So there's so many fears. And I know I didn't have all 2,000, but I had a lot of them. And so when I found that scripture, I really tested God. I'm calling to you. I need help. I was so afraid.
Yeah.
And little by little, He began to remove them. And I'm telling you today, I am brave. I am a brave. I'm not afraid of nothing. I'm like, bring it on.
I was wondering, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is maybe a single mother now? And what kind of advice do you think that about could help somebody who's in their, say, 30s or 20s?
You know what the best advice? I'm telling you, I love that you asked me that question. Be friends with their daddy and don't badmouth him. That blood courses through their veins. And you know what? Children are so affected when parents fight with one another.